Action Comics 1052, Philip K. Johnson writing with Rafa Sandoval on the art. So obviously we had the big fight at the new Steel Tower. Is that what it was called? The Steelworks Tower. So we kind of pick off right where that left off, with Metallo still around, and the super family dealing with it. Your lame super character Connor Kent got his ass whipped. And Superman has to go finish the job, which he does in fairly spectacular fashion by freezing him and then punching him to the moon. So
I love that.
I figured you probably would.
Yeah, I also love in the fight with Metallo, his body is peeling like a Terminator.
Oh yeah, he gets punched in the face, and half of his like cheeks just gone.
Yeah.
Which made me kind of laugh, because like he just got this body. Like that was just like last issue, he got this new.
Well, and just the fact that that he's doing this because he's under duress. He's not, there's not crazy Metallo. And
this issue maybe goes some places with that idea, but okay.
yeah. But like at this point, he's still, being put upon to do all of this, and just he gets his ass beat by the super family and then frozen and thrown into space. So good teamwork. I'm glad Connor's okay though.
Of course you are. I do love that this book's more of a super family book now. I mean, even though there's a lot of them when we go to the apartment and they're all sort of sitting hanging out together, but they're watching Lex News and whatnot, and they're trying to the alien menace, the war zones are the danger to society, all that.
Yeah,
nonsense.
was it the blue Earth?
The Blue Earthers
gets brought up.
Which the Blue Earthers like clearly is inspired by the Flat Earthers, which is kind of funny to me. I do enjoy the reference to it. But so we have some fun stuff here. We get a little bit of the Lois and Clark raising these two kids in the middle, and by that I mean just them like getting their teeth brushed, going to bed, that kind of stuff,
and reminding them, how to essentially not how to be civilized. That's rude, but like. They don't have to live like they did. They can be comfortable, and it's taking some adjustments, because there's one panel where I think it's I don't know their names, but the girl, right? She sleeps with like blankets, like chains or towels or whatever.
And they're also sleeping on the floor as well, because they're not used to a bed,
right?
Which is
it's just heartbreaking. Which I like that Kenny Johnson's making us feel. These emotions for these two kids.
I mean, I've heard of people in the military or whatever not being comfortable with a regular bed for a while when they
because it's too soft compared to what they're used to.
So I mean that feels like it's based on some truth there. But I mean it's all very fun and lighthearted and kind of has an air of what's the word I'm looking for here. It feels like
there's levity.
They're doing a good job looking after the kids, and none of it ever feels like depressing or dark. It's all just about giving them a nice, safe, comfortable place to actually kind of like adjust and become who they're going to be. And
let the kids be the kids right now.
And what it does as well is that it allows us this couple of new viewpoints to like do other things through. For example, them asking Clark why he wears glasses or things like that. Just like we get like this new viewpoint or a new question onto the mythology of Superman, where it's like, wait, why do you do this and this, now? And we've got a kind of a different context here. I particularly enjoyed the kids saying, asking about that, and then Clark's like, actually Clark Kent's the name I kind of associate, I identify with the most, because that's the one that I was actually raised with. Superman's the name that Lois gave me, and then there's the little joke where the girl's like, she calls you Smallville. Well, she calls me that too.
Yeah.
So
I like that. I like that little section.
Yeah. So that entire getting ready for bed segment is a lot of fun, and it contrasts really nice because the very next couple of pages is the flashback of Metallo's childhood, also with his sister. This is the sort of thing I didn't realize that doing the Metallo stuff with the brother and sister was going to mirror with the Kryptonian kids.
Yeah.
But this was good storytelling, because immediately it was like, I see what you're doing, Johnson. I see what you're doing, you sly bugger.
Yeah, it was a nice turn, of the story.
So we see that he's the big brother, she's the little sister. their uncles bring their dad back one night. They've clearly killed someone or at least injured someone, and they ask him as a young boy to go and get rid of a gun because he'll be less suspicious, I guess.
Go throw this into the river as far as you can.
Yeah, and his uncle says, if you ever tell anyone about this, I'll kill you. Like, that's basically what he says. So so no matter what we get for the rest of the story, there's a level of sympathy, or at least empathy, with this character, because it's like, okay, he's a product of a very, very poor upbringing, and the people around him.
It reminded me of like Captain Cold too.
A little bit. Yeah.
The stuff that he dealt with his dad, and why family is so important to him. As he was always the defender for his sister and against his dad.
Yeah, Captain Cold also, of course, has the sister as well, which is a constant thing that's brought up. And so Metallo wakes up in space, and his ice breaks off, and then he starts to see his sister as a hologram, as if she's the one that's been beamed to him now instead of Lex. But there's a couple of red flags here, I think, to the reader, which is she's like, oh, Superman's taking me somewhere because he's worried that, because I got a little confused by one of the lines, because I thought she was trying to say that Lex put her somewhere so that Superman couldn't find her, but it sounded like she's saying Superman did it. And then the more I read, I was like, no, she did say Superman. That's what she meant, because this is like this. So we have to kind of go forward to the next bit to explain this. So basically, Superman mentions that he checked in on Lex because during the fight at the start of the issue, at one point, Metallo does actually say something to Lex out loud. And obviously, you're thinking, oh, well, at least some of them heard that. They've got super hearing. Like, someone heard him talking to Lex. But they're talking about it later on after they put the kids to bed, and Clark's like, I looked in on Lex when he was talking to him, and Lex was sitting in his prison cell. Because I was getting ready to nitpick a little bit. Not in a big way, but I was coming into this, when I was halfway through the issue, before we got to this, like, he's sitting in prison moment, I was like, how does this remotely line up with what's happening in Superman right now? Because Lex is in prison, and he's not going after Superman at all. I mean, maybe he's secretly going after Superman, but he's more trying to give him the company to help him, right? Now, obviously, both books don't have to be completely concurrent, but it's so different that if here he's like hiring Metallo to try and kill him versus, in Superman where he's like pretending to be his friend and like giving him the company and all that. So I was getting ready to say it's not a big deal, but like these two don't line up at all right now. And then it gets to this page where Superman's like, no, he's in prison cell, and he wasn't talking to him when Metallo was talking to someone. So whoever he's talking to, it's not Lex. And immediately I thought about it and went, did Lex ever talk to him in person? Since he started being teased, it was always a hologram in his head, or a voice in his head, wasn't it? It
was always a voice in his head. It was a voice in his head at first, and we thought they were talking through the prison, right? And then now when you look back and think about it, it's like, well, no, it was always in his head, because remember, until he got the upgrades, he was kind of just like a shell, right? He was just kind of sitting there. So where did he get these upgrades from?
Well, okay, there's a couple of good questions here. Is where did he get the upgrades? Who's actually talking to him? If it is someone else pretending to be Lex, or is it just a voice in his head? The fact that his sister's now talking to him in his head like this makes me think it is just in his head, and it also makes me question, was his sister always just in his head? That said, though, the guards at the prison did talk about the fact that his sister usually comes in, and now she's not, which makes me think that her not showing up, like on the last time, which is what convinced him to go full villain, was just her not showing up, like for whatever reason, like she's choosing not to go see him anymore, or
it's who's ever posing as Lex. Because I still feel like if they're using Lex's voice, right, they would still try to use Metallo's sister against him.
Yeah, you could be right. I think that's slightly less interesting to me than the sad truth that she's just like doesn't want to like spend time with her weird robot brother anymore. Because I think that could be quite heartbreaking when he finds out that she's fine, she's not in trouble at all, she just stopped showing up. It would be kind of a big character moment for him.
It would be if she's in on it, right?
I don't like that.
Or if she, that she's part of this Blue Earth movement because of all the stuff that Superman, all the stuff that he stands for and has led her brother to get into trouble or whatever. But that doesn't really gel.
I think that's less interesting. Like her
I don't know if it also gels with what we've seen about her showing up to hang out with her brother.
Yeah, her being villainous is less interesting to me. Like I think it's far more interesting if she either just chose to stop coming, other things got more important, which is just kind of sad in kind of a forgetful way, or maybe something bad did happen, but it was just she's in a car accident or something,
right?
And it has nothing to do with like any threats or anything like that, and it's all just paranoia in Metallo's head. It does leave the question: is where did he get the fancy body?
And this is where we get the conversation with the kids also, that they ask if he's unmade. And
we need to. Yeah, that was a really good point. Yeah, because they're asking about Metallo. Yeah.
Yeah, so they ask if he's an unmade, and Superman thinks
it's after Superman and Steel explain what Metallo is.
What Metallo is to them.
They talk about how he was a person, he got injured, and he's basically just like a husk left in this metal body now. He's just like a brain with a metal body. And they go, oh, he's an unmade, which I thought was a really smart little writing touch, because it was like, oh, that brings this, like, obviously it references the previous big arc that Johnson just did in a cool way, which is nice, but it also makes these kids feel more three-dimensional to me, because they viewed it through their lens, and it felt very natural, because it would make sense that they would see it that way given where they came from and what they've grown up with.
And this is where I give Sandoval credit, is the face of Clark when they tell him that, it clicks,
and he's
you
like,
can see it.
You know what? Face. Kinda, yeah, kind of is an unmade.
Yes, and then and now that makes me wonder about the ties of Warworld to this blue movement, to the Blue Earth movement, because we'd already have that wrap up of what's his name. He was Mongol's like right hand.
Desad. Desad?
No, that's not.
That's Darkseid's dude. Yeah,
that's Darkseid's right hand. But the guy who's very much like Desad, he was the oldest Warzone, right?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, and they had all that stuff with Supergirl as a backup. So I'm almost.
I'm not convinced that the Blue Earthers, like I still think the Blue Earthers are just a reaction to, like, I think that's a natural, just like human reaction that's happening to what's going on. But I do think you might be onto something, that something left over from Warworld is what's doing it. Who's given Metallo the body, and who's maybe either pretending to talk to him, or at least capitalizing on him going more paranoid and crazy, and like talking to a voice in his head, whatever it turns out to be. I do think, I think even if there's not a direct tie to it, I love that this idea of the Warzones who are on Earth are creating this political backlash of this, like, this alt-right movement of Blue Earthers. But I also love the idea that even just the themes of, like, the kids seeing them as an unmade is a really cool way to, like, keep the themes of that story going. It feels like there's been an impact on the world because of that story, even though we're not in that story anymore. I appreciate that serialized world building and storytelling where everything that just happened still matters, even though we're not dealing directly with it anymore. Comics all too often, like an old TV show where there's a story every week, we'll just like forget everything else that ever happened. And I'm not saying you have to reference them constantly, and honestly it can be quite forced if they're just awkwardly bringing things up in dialogue. All the examples in this issue that we're talking about, I think, feel very natural and feel like just a part of the world that's been created for this run.
Yeah. Well, and it feels like a larger piece of Johnson's run in a ways. Like, I don't know how far you got into Aaron's Thor, but we got 2 or 3 trades worth of stories in, and he's referencing back stuff that had happened before. Character decisions that were made, in issue 6 now having an impact in issue 24 or whatever. And so it feels like it does in this world. It has had an impact. And just the idea of these refugees coming from Warworld, and of course that causing issues on Earth and whatnot.
Yeah, to go back to Metallo in prison just for a second, his sister.
Yeah.
I said that she probably was really there because the guards referenced her. I think the other reason why she was definitely really there before is because one of the red flags when he was talking to the hologram of his sister in this was that she said, "Oh, you're going to have to kill Superman and all of his family." That did not feel like the same character who was talking to him in the prison. That felt like the real person was there in the prison, and then this hologram's in his head. And it's just like the Lex one wasn't working, so it's turned into his sister because that's more personal. Well, that's because it's his own psychology doing that to him, or if it's like an outside force that's changing tactics, could be either. But I wanted to bring that up. But anyway, the end of the book is that Metallo goes back down to Earth. He lands next to a group of these quote unquote blue earthers who want to, go and blow up more of the building or something like that.
Silly ass armbands.
Yeah,
and a bunch of nerds.
They basically take one look at him and say, "Oh, you're one of them. Let's try and kill him." And Metallo obviously kills like one or two of them. He then teleports the rest of them while they're still scared to his like base or wherever, and basically implies at the end here that he's going to turn them into his Metallo family. So, because as he's pointed out, there's an entire family of super characters now to fight. So he's going to make a family of Metallos to take them all on. So we're definitely building to a giant fight of like, the entire super family versus all these Metallo
Metallobots or whatever they're going to be.
So I think that the genius of the writing in this is that Johnson's made sure that these humans are so unlikable before they become these Metallobots that we don't have to feel too much
shame.
Or we can relish in them getting their ass kicked a little bit, I guess is what I'm saying when the time comes. Not to say that it wouldn't be advantageous to also do like, it's tragic because they were sympathetic before, but he's going this way though instead, because there's probably enough meat to the story without adding in that they are also sympathetic.
Yeah, I mean, just being the Superman will try to preserve them. However, if they're too far gone, I'm not upset that these are the people of Gotham, right? And Ram V's detective being turned into demons. These are
this is very different.
Yeah, human supremacists or whatever we're gonna call them.
Yeah, so, and they basically get involved because they immediately try and attack him. So they kind of put themselves. They had
it coming.
In multiple ways they put themselves in this position.
Yeah.
Obviously they didn't foresee this outcome, but
it definitely reminded me of Terminator when the punks try to attack Terminator.
Oh sure, yeah, I could see that.
And knowing that's pop culture at this moment, but yeah, no, that was all very good and very, very, very solid issue. But yeah, the stuff with the kids and calling him an unmade and Clark like it clicking with him, and so he's learning from these kids as much as they're learning from him, through different perspectives. I like that a whole lot. Yeah,
I enjoyed Superman issue 1, but I think Johnson's action is still better. I think this is still the premier Superman book right now. And this issue just sort of reaffirmed that. I mean, I kind of felt that anyway, but this issue was like, everything this is doing and the way it's bringing up the things that it's already done is really smart.
Wait, I'm just like, you're telling me I get 2 good Superman books a month? Yes, we're good.
Yeah, I've had 2 good ones for a while. That's it.
Yeah, but this is like too mainstream. This is not just John. The John book was good, right? But like, we're gonna get 2. I really enjoyed that Superman issue 1. But this is just, again, when I say more of the same, it sounds like a slight, but it's not. This is what I come to expect from Johnson, and it's at this point, it's a if it does anything less than stellar, it feels like, and not that it makes me feel sad, but so just a bit of a disappointment.
That's the thing, though. The last couple issues, because it's changed so much from the War World storyline, it does feel very fresh and different anyways. It's not like it's just we're still doing the same type of story either. So it's managed to stay fresh, but keep everything that it did before important as well, which is, again, I think it's firing on all cylinders. And I love this. I think Sandoval's art in this main story was great as well. The action at the start was good. You could tell Superman was doing his super breath right before he freeze or froze Metallo.
And the facial expressions too, because there's that scene where they're all hanging out, like, and they talk about the reason that Lex had Metallo attack Steelworks is because it's taller than Lex Tower.
Yeah, and so, one of them says, is it plausible that he just did that because it was taller than his tower? Right. And the Steeler, someone says, oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely,
but yeah, just the look on their faces and everything, and there's
even what you said,
natural expression to stuff, what I mean?
Even you said earlier about when the kids said, is Metallo unmade? Like, Clark's expression sort of did the storytelling there of like, when it comes to Sandoval, I associate Sandoval, I think, with Green Lanterns and Flash, which is a lot more action driven, and the action stuff is good here. But for me, this issue really sings when they're all back at the apartment, talking and going over things, and those were probably my favorite scenes. But this new wrinkle that's added in, because I think we liked the idea of Lex like
Yeah.
being the one behind, like bringing out Metallo and forcing him to do it. But this is actually the sort of thing where it's almost more interesting if this is just either in his head and he's justifying that he's doing bad things again by making himself think that Lex is doing this, or if there's a third party, possibly someone Warworld related, that is using him and actually making him a literal unmade, as well as just him spiritually being one, because that's kind of what he was anyway.
Yeah.
So
I would definitely be more everything's in his head and he's making up it, but he did get upgrades, right? So
that's the only thing that goes against that, is that there is upgrades. Like he did get a body.
Yes.
So
now again, we don't know what Metallo, like, is it nanite technology? Is it, like, we don't know right now, you know, because I could see that where he wouldn't realize, because he's so disassociated and he was in such a low place and wanted to be left alone in the prison, that, you know, he's thought that this is someone else's doing, but it's actually all him. I could see something along those lines, but you know, we'll see. I'm excited to find out.
Yeah. And if it is someone from Warworld, it wouldn't surprise me if the reason why they wanted to attack the tower was kind of what happens as a result. It's basically it'll be blamed on the war zones. It'll be blamed on the aliens on Earth to stir up, you know, hatred and stir up like this idea of dissent. So it could be possible that, you know, someone was pretending to be Lex, communicating with him, and now his sister's just in his head, and the sister's not been. You know, that's just all him doing that now. But it still would make sense if it was someone and they've just changed tactic to, because if they could pretend to be Lex, they could pretend to be his sister.
And that's where I'm at too. Is there?
So no, great stuff. I did read one of the backups though, because
I read both of them, so we'll go through them real quick.
So the John story by what's his face, Dan Jurgens, with
art by Lee Weeks.
Yeah, Lee Weeks' art is fantastic. Which is not surprising to say. So we ended the last part of the story with John finding a crashed ship, and an alien woman comes out, and she basically says, "Take me to your king," and he's like, don't really have a king per se, but
not here. It's very good. Like, Earth doesn't have a king, but there are kings on Earth. You know, him trying to explain it in a very kid-like manner, I liked.
Yeah, but she basically wants Superman. She wants to talk to Superman, and he's like, "Yeah, I know about Superman." She keeps saying the Kryptonian, I think was the exact phrase, but he ends up using his powers to like stop her ship from, was it self-destructing or something like that? It was it was beeping, but he obviously damages a lot more than that, and she's kind of, you know, like, you just destroyed all the flight controls, like it's kind of done now. But of course, quite quickly, this robot-looking thing shows up, saying, so her name's Princess Gliana, and
from Playan. What's the name of the planet? Something like that.
Not on this page. But he's there to take her back to wherever she came from. Apparently, there's some sort of civil war on their planet, and this robot's from the other side of the conflict. Because you know, her dad's like fighting for the good side, presumably. This robot's part of the bad guy side, and he's there to take her back and try her with treason and things like that. So they get blasted. A little bit of action here. It's got like sort of it's very pulpy. He's got green big beams, tractor beams that pick them up. John yells for Superman. That's the first time we cut to him in the story, and he flies towards him as Lois gets scared and goes looking for John in the house. And then it ties into the opening of the story, which is there's a guy in a truck hitchhiking on his way to the Kents. And in the end, we find out this is Doombreaker, who's at the door for Lois to greet.
Every issue of this now, I feel like I need to go read that Jurgens story in the special. But then that requires me you picking up that Death of Superman special. So,
because I like,
the completionist of me is crying out, and the other part of me is like, you don't have time for that.
Yeah, if this didn't specifically say Doombreaker, I couldn't have told you who this was, because I didn't know who Doombreaker was. But
me neither. I did like the beginning of the guy in the truck's like, "Hey man, you're okay. You look like really sick." You know, so like his body is going through something, and then as we see, he's looking like Doomsday.
Yeah, I think I enjoyed this much like I did the last part, mainly because John's voice. It's nice to have that kid John back again, and obviously Jurgens is the one who kind of did most of that stuff, and not all of it. Obviously Tomasi did a lot of it as well.
Yeah.
But it was nice to be back in that part of the world. I do kind of wish it was just a full 20 pages though, and that the other backup wasn't there. But obviously that's biased because I don't like the other backup. But you know, I would like a more significant chunk. But that's just one of the problems I tend to have with backups in general. Yeah. So what was your thoughts on the Power Girl backup?
So the Power Girl one is that they, you know, her and Omen have this therapy center for superheroes, and they're talking about like if they really did help Gar, or because Power Girl's like, yeah, but like his connection was tenuous at best still. And Omen points out, he's like, well, yeah, he still has a lot of work to do. We're not gonna fix everybody on their first try, So this is gonna take a little bit.
Yeah, maybe they should put him in a sanctuary where he can go and get therapy and.
Yeah, not that one though. Well, we'll go to a different one.
He's a hero in crisis, Matt. He needs a sanctuary.
Yes. Well, we'll do a Titan in danger or something. No heroes in crisis, But Omen feels very comfortable about like what they're doing. She's very sure of herself. And then Kara comes in, and Power Girl feels weird because she feels like there's heat between her and Kara because of who Power Girl is, and we kind of get confirmation here.
I mean, if all the fan fiction the internet setting to go by, I'm sure there is.
Yeah, right. But she feels like Kara's the real Kara Zor-El, and that her being from a parallel Earth, she's not the real one. She doesn't feel like part of the super family. She kind of feels like the redheaded stepchild because she doesn't get the invite to hang out in Metropolis like everyone else does. But Kara comes in and she's talking like gibberish, and it's not like the Kryptonian, like when they use the Kryptonian font for Kryptonese and whatever. And so they talk, and Omen sits Kara down and was like, hey, I know you can understand us, you just can't speak. So this is what we're going to do. And they go telepathically because she can still communicate telepathically with them. And she said, just since, for the last couple of weeks after her last adventure, she's been having this issue communicating. And so Karen goes in, Power Girl goes in, and she sees Argo City, and there's a version of Kara in there, and Kara's like, why do I look like this? And Power Girl's like, well, this is your ideal self. Like, this is what you've always wanted. Like, you miss Argo City. I don't remember Argo City, so I can't give you this perspective. And she looks around, and there's all these monuments of like Krypton here, and Power Girl starts to put together like it's these memories, and her trying to hold up Argo City as this perfect memory is what's kind of adding to this trauma and her ability to not communicate. But she can't get rid of these things. Kara has to do it. So basically she starts taunting her and being like, yeah, you're the real one, but I've had to become my own person. You've got to be Superman's cousin. I have to be myself. And this is where it comes out, where she talks about feeling like the redheaded stepchild of the super family. And as they're going, Kara's destroying these like monuments, and as she's on the outside, Omen sees her, and she's like not slate talking, but she starts to talk. Like she starts like saying stop, and that's not true. And that's how they start to realize that these are the blocks that are up in her brain that's causing the trauma. So they finally get to the last one, and there's like this darkness around it. And Power Girl realizes that no, someone is mentally attacking Kara. So she comes out of the thing and comes out of the therapy session and was like, look, someone's attacking you. We're going to have to, get to the bottom of this. And that's where that ends. So again, I love that what Leah Williams is doing for the story of kind of this therapy for superheroes and kind of digging deep on these different perspectives. This whole Kara versus Power Girl and where they stand is a question that I've had since they've decided to give Power Girl this new telepathic, subset of powers and whatnot. So just having them have these defined roles in, her not remembering Argo City and her having a completely different relationship to Superman than Kara does, that's what makes them defined here. So, really, really enjoy it. I understand that the Savage art's not for everybody, and ever since you've mentioned the dead doll eyes, I can't help but see it, and it drives me nuts because I love the color. I love the breakdowns of the pages. But yeah, sometimes the faces are a little bit teensy bit scary. So, but no, I'm enjoying the
They all
story
like
a lot.
Megan. Like they're gonna come and kill you in your sleep.
Yeah, Megan. So yeah, so we're gonna rate the book as a whole.
Yeah. Well, you go first. You always go first. Don't try to trick me. How dare you?
No. But I didn't know if that's where we were ending it, or if you had anything else to say. So, the first
Well, on the backup, I didn't read it.
No, but on the other backup.
Okay.
So the main story I'm gonna give an 8.5. The John story I'll give about a 7.5, and I'll give the Kara story 7. So trying to add these all up, I'll give it an 8 overall.
Very good. I think I'm going 9. I think the main story for me, I think, is a great issue, a great continuity issue of a run that is using all the tools that it's sort of built up over its run so far in interesting ways to build its characters and the story. The Metallo kind of like teases and twists that he's not actually been speaking to Lex is super interesting. I think the high point of Detective this week was a little higher than anything in Action, but I think Action was more consistent and overall a much better experience from beginning to end, with no weak points. So I have to go 9, I think, because I really liked it. And the John backup was fun. It was nice to go. I'm kind of just rating the main story though. I'm for the most part, I just kind of let the backups be separate and don't really think about them too much.